Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Thursday evening Parent Academy webinar session. Thank you for joining us. And again, we are excited to have you as audience listeners and participants. I am Tina Foston Hayes, the Parent Academy Specialist of Educational Equity and Outreach for the Alachua County Public Schools. And I welcome you this evening. Tonight, we will receive some helpful information from our guest speakers, the New Worlds Reading Initiative. And just before we begin, let's review some housekeeping elements. Please keep your microphones on mute through the duration of the presentation. We will be monitoring your questions and we will respond accordingly. Please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of the webinar window. And please note, all Parent Academy webinars are closed captioned and recorded and posted to our website for access for a later date or re-review for anyone who could not attend live tonight. Your questions will be answered at the conclusion of each session. If there is a specific need for any personal conversations, the Parent Academy's email address is parentacademy@gm.sbac.edu, and we will get to those questions and requests for additional information. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speakers for this evening, the team from the New Worlds Reading Initiative. Thank you for joining us, ladies.
Thank you for having us, Tina. Good
Absolutely.
evening, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited to be with you all today. My name is Rasika Dennis, and I'm joined by my colleague, Elizabeth McConey. And we appreciate your commitment to your children's continued success here today, and we're here to support you on the journey. So we both work at the University of Florida at the Lastinger Center for Learning as a part of the New Worlds Reading Initiative. So the New World Reading Initiative is a free statewide book delivery program that sends free books and literacy resources to children grades kindergarten through 5th grade in public and charter schools. And the eligibility is for students who are not yet reading on grade level. I'll be sharing more information about how to sign up for this program at the end of the presentation. So today, our goal is to provide practical tips and strategies you can use to support your children's reading success. So before we begin, let's take a moment to center the focus of our work for this evening. If you feel comfortable to do so, please close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your child or children have grown into adults. They're happy, healthy, and thriving. They have all the tools they need to succeed. In this vision, what are they doing? Remember this mental image. Now open your eyes and think about the personality traits that your children already have that will help them be and feel successful now and in the future. Now use this mental picture to finish this sentence. My child or children will succeed because. So as Tina mentioned earlier, down at the bottom of your Zoom window, you'll notice a Q&A button feature that you can use to chat with us throughout the session. If you're comfortable doing so, I'd love for you to add your response to the Q&A function of Zoom. So I'll give everyone about a minute to finish the sentence. My child or children will succeed because. So we have one response that says, my child will succeed because I will do all that I can to make sure they are supported in reaching their dreams. Another attendee said, my child will succeed because he's positive, resilient, Another said he is patient and confident in his own thoughts and actions. Another one says, I believe my child will succeed because I believe in her. These are all great and they're all coming in. Okay, another says hardworking, never gives up. My child will succeed because he has parents who care and he works hard. Thank you all for sharing. We love hearing about real children behind our work. So at the beginning of the year, so now let's begin by talking about habits in the general sense. At the beginning of every year, there's a lot of peer pressure on many adults to begin new habits. As an adult, I think I've lost count on the number of habits I've started and failed to stick with, but I'm not alone. Statistics say that 23% of people quit their healthy habit resolutions in the first week, and only 9% make it throughout the year. I'm a part of the 23%. Developing habits can be so challenging. So before I talk about reading habits, let's talk ways to make habits stick. So developing habits. Habits are shortcuts that help people complete tasks automatically. Our brains love establishing habits because once one is established, the brain no longer needs to think about it. I'll give one of my favorite examples. One of the everyday greetings that adults use with other adults is, "Hi, how are you?" Most adults have an automatic answer to this question, something like, "I'm doing well, how are you?" Answering the question this way is a habit. Habits are often connected together. One action automatically follows another, is followed by another. This goes back to the "Hi, how are you" example. One response is the link to the other. Schools use this idea of connecting habits with children. The bell rings and the teacher starts the day with the routine. With this routine, children learn to do things automatically because one task is always followed by another. These things become habits. Repetition is important in formatting new habits. Habits can take between 18 to 254 days of practice. It can sometimes take a very long time to establish new habits. You might need to work for a while for a new habit to become permanent. Some tips to help establish new habits are: try to set up a reasonable habit. Pick a goal that is within reach. Maybe I'd like to run a marathon, and I know most marathon runners run at least 10 miles a week to train. If I'm not a runner, which I'm not, trying to establish that as a habit is probably too big of an ask. Maybe I should start with a smaller habit, like taking time to exercise 3 times a week before I attempt to log any serious miles. Try to attain a new habit to another task. Try to attach a new habit to another task that it can become automatic. For example, if the first thing that happens in the morning is making coffee, what might you attach to that action that might become a new habit? And try to connect new habits to something enjoyable. For instance, if someone would like to develop the habit of eating healthy regularly, but they haven't taken the time to find healthy foods they like, that habit probably won't stick. But if they can find healthy foods they love, they're more likely to stick with the habit. So we are going to be talking about reading habits. So while we're keeping those in mind, these are the reading habits we'll be talking about today during our session with you all today. And they're going to fall into 3 categories: increase reading motivation, increase reading time, and improve reading skills. I'm now going to pass it over to my colleague, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Nasika. Let's begin by talking about reading habits, by talking about reading motivations. Which one would you rather do, a chore or an activity? Imagine a scene in which a newly hired nanny wants the child in her care to clean up her room. The nanny, whom I'm going to call Perry Moppins, has two choices. She can lay down the law with these children, lock them in a room without snacks or fun until they clean up. Or she can make the activity fun with liberal use of magic and maybe a musical number. And the kids would learn that cleaning up is not such a big deal. Unfortunately, I don't have Perry Moppins magic, but I do have some research into the ways to increase children's motivation to read more. This section of the presentation is all about increasing reading motivation. Reading motivation is the desire or want that gets kids reading. It's all about making reading an enjoyable activity that kids want to engage in. Children who enjoy the reading experience look forward to spending time reading, and they're likely to read more. They'll even pick reading as a choice activity. They'll ask to read. The very first habit is to make reading a fun activity. This could look like reading silly books that make your child laugh. Make funny voices as you read. Read books that ask your child to press buttons or do silly actions. Making reading time extra dramatic is a great way to bond with your child. Play up the emotions of the characters. Get your child giggling, and it's likely they'll begin to ask for more reading time. It's human nature to enjoy spending time with people who are enjoying themselves. So naturally, children want to spend time reading with people who are enjoying themselves. This means that the more fun that you are having when you read together, the more your child will want to engage in that activity with you. Our next habit talks about making reading time comfortable. Let's talk about how and where children are sitting down to read. The first thing to consider before reading with children is meeting their physical needs. This could mean that a child needs a snack or some playtime before reading. They might need to stretch. Whatever their needs might be, children cannot be successful without first being ready for the experience. One thing to keep in mind with seating is that some children need to keep moving. The need to move is something that adults don't always recognize as a need for themselves, but it's a need that's difficult to ignore for many children. If a child needs extra movement, they might appreciate seating that allows them to move while seating. They might like a porch swing or a wheelie chair or an exercise ball, or they might need a chance to work off some energy before sitting down to read. Also, some children with sensory needs might appreciate sitting in a lap to read. Next, children need a place to read. They need a comfortable spot to sit or lay down. They need good lighting, and they might need a fan or a blanket. Most importantly, reading time needs fewer distractions, and that means turning the cell phones and TV off and turning music down. The previous habit talked about where and how children were reading. Now let's discuss the importance of choice. In order for children to want to read, they need to access materials that are interesting to them. Choice is an especially important consideration when you're talking about increasing reading motivation. There are many different types of books out there, and every type of reading helps improve reading skills. So you can think about comic books and graphic novels, ultimate fan guides, movie novelizations, books based on their favorite video game characters, magazines, how-to guides, and don't forget about nonfiction. If it's possible, make sure to spend time at the library on a regular basis to pick up more books. Libraries are a great free resources, and children in Alachua County Public Schools automatically have a free library card. Reluctant readers might get stuck on one particular type of book or type of reading, and it's important not to say no to their choices. I always look at this sticky time as an opportunity to play yes and. To play this game, you just start by saying yes. Yes, you can have that book you've already read 1,000,000 times before. but you follow that statement up with an and. And you can also pick out a book that's new to you too. Think about this as getting children to try new foods. Sometimes they need a lot of little tastes before they're willing to eat a meal. So keep giving them those tastes. Finally, children can increase their reading motivation if they have some reading role models in their lives. Children learn by observing the world around them. Children are more likely to become lifelong readers if they see that reading is a fun and lifelong habit, not just something that children are forced to do. They need to see the adults in their lives reading too. Adults who are reading role models might share something that they read about in an interesting article, talk about something they were reading at work, tell their children how much they enjoy reading time with them. Have family reading times when the entire family is reading and they're all reading their own books. And they'll pick out books for themselves when they're at the library. This is also true for children who live in the 20% of US households that speak a language other than English at home. Children who have great literacy skills in another language can easily translate those skills into reading and learning English. Young children especially are learning more from the adult who's reading with them than they are from the book that they're reading. So whatever the language is, just keep reading. So this is the end of our section covering reading motivation. And here are some of the habits we've covered so far, just to review. Make reading time fun. Make reading time comfortable. Provide high interest reading materials. And be a reading role model. Think about how you might incorporate these habits into your daily routine. Where do they fit? We have a couple of minutes now for a Q&A if you'd like. If you have any questions about that previous section or just reading questions in general, we can take a minute and answer them. Remember that Q&A feature down at the bottom of the screen. Please add any questions you might have. And while we're waiting, a quick brain teaser for you. True or false? Audiobooks provide the same benefits as reading a physical book. Is that true or false? Just think to yourself, what do you think? So the answer is true. Audiobooks have been shown to stimulate the same areas of the brain as reading. So while your brain is not decoding the words, it's still stimulating the same cognitive and emotional centers in the brain. They're especially good option for reluctant readers or readers with difficulties. All right, Ms. Nasika, I'll let you take on the next section.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So we discussed the motivation to read. Now I'm going to focus on habits that can help increase the amount of time children spend reading.
I'm sorry, Nasika. I see some questions in the Q&A, and I'm not sure if they were from.
Yes. So one question was, what are some resources for reading comprehension?
And that is such an important question. We're going to have a couple more tips later on in the program to talk about reading comprehension. And we'll add some additional things at the end as well. We're going to have 2 more opportunities to answer Q&As, so don't feel like I've skipped your question just because I didn't get a chance to answer it right now.
Thanks, Elizabeth. All right. So now we're going to get into increased reading time. So students who read more, learn more. Increasing the time spent reading can make a huge difference in a child's life. Like any skill that needs improvement, reading is a bit of a numbers game. So spending time practicing a new skill is the best way to improve it. What you see on the screen right now is the information for an average student who is not doing much reading at home. We know this child will hear about 8,000 new words a year. They'll have read 42 hours total by the end of 6th grade, and they will only score better than 10% of their classmates on standardized tests. You can see on this slide how much these minutes can add up. A child who is reading 5 minutes a day at home is hearing about 282,000 words per year, and they will have read 212 hours, and on standard tests, they will score better than half of their classmates. But a child who reads 20 minutes a day at home will hear about 1.8 million words a year. They'll have read about 851 hours by the end of 6th grade, and most importantly, these children are more likely to score better than 90% of their classmates. The statistics on these slides are not new, and you may have seen them before. It is shocking to see how the numbers add up over time, and it's important to keep those numbers in mind. But this data will not increase reading time. Developing reading habits will. Here are some habits to help you get started. So creating a home library is an important habit to create. Children who have easy access to books are more likely to read. You can get books for free from the library, pick them up from garage sales or from other secondhand sources. Consider a book swap with friends or classmates. If your family exchanges presents, normalize giving and receiving books as presents for birthdays and holidays. If your child qualifies, sign up for the New World Reading Initiative, and we will send a new book every month. Keep books everywhere: bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living area, next to the sofa, beach bag, backpack, purse, and car. Remember that it can take many repetitions to establish a new habit. It can be very beneficial to start putting reading time on your daily schedule. To help increase reading time, set a specific time to read that is the same every day. This ensures that the reading time is actually happening. It's also an opportunity to connect a reading habit with another part of your child's routine so that it happens automatically. A child's bedtime routine might be brush their teeth, shower, and get dressed, read a book, and go to bed. One action follows the other, so there's no question about what happens next. Considers the child's needs when establishing a reading time. Right before bedtime might not be the perfect time for all children. Possible reading times include bedtime, immediately before or after dinner, right after breakfast, before school, or right after a sport or activity. Have books picked out ahead of time so that when it's time to read, reading time can start immediately. So let's talk about how to sneak in some extra reading time. So to increase reading time, sneak it in whenever you can. There's always an opportunity for reading. Read a recipe, directions, or instructions. Read the signs on the road and labels in the stores. In case of unexpected waiting times, take a book along. Anytime a child might be on a cell phone to keep them occupied, they could be reading instead. Then replace music with audiobook time. Like mentioned earlier, audiobooks simulate the same part of the brain responsible for reading. So, just to recap, we talked about the different habits from this section. So creating an at-home library, set a time and prepare for it, sneak in some extra reading. So the question, which habits are you looking to incorporate into your daily routine? So again, please feel free to pop in any questions you might have into the Q&A feature of the Zoom. When we see a few here, we'll be sure to answer them.
So we had a
have
question in there about a list of audiobooks that you could
Mhm.
recommend for children. One of my favorite sources for audiobooks, and you're going to get tired of hearing me say it, is the library. The library has free downloads of audiobooks. You can go and search. They have several sources of free audiobooks. Some of them are on demand. You can get some higher interest ones, or they have ones that you would check out just like a book, so they might only have 1 or 2 copies, so you might end up on a holds list at some point. You can often search by grade level or reading level, but my favorite way to search is to just start searching for things that I know that my child is interested in. So when my child, I know he loves fantasy stories, I will start searching fantasy stories, and I will especially look at the bottom of the page where it will start recommending people who looked at this book also looked at this book, and I have found many great family favorites that way.
Another question, Elizabeth, was what if my child is hesitant to read?
So many children are hesitant to read. Reading can sometimes not be their favorite thing to do in the world. I unfortunately had one of those myself. And the way to do it is to figure out whatever it is that makes them happy. My child decided he loved high fantasy, and he loved adult books. Like, he was not going to read little tiny baby books. He was going to read the big ones, and he only really wanted to listen to audiobooks. That's fine. We share reading responsibilities. I will read to him, he will read to me. We'll pick out the big books, we will listen to audiobooks, and we will follow his tastes. But I will also be the mom, and I will sneak in little snippets of reading. He will be reading recipes for me. He will read the directions on my phone. So he will be a helper in that way too. So you get sneaky with it. And once children have enough positive experiences to kind of match out their negative ones, they start leading that discussion too. My child asks now to read. So you can get there.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. Another question was, does it take a lot of books to start your own library at home?
Your library can be as big or as small as it needs to be. I know that a lot of kids kind of stick with their 3 favorite books, and that's all they want to read. I like to provide as many books as possible. Again, this is why the library is amazing. Free. Take them home. If they don't work out, you have not invested any money. I love book swaps with my friends and family as well. So we have books that didn't do so well at my house. I will share with you, you share with me, and in the end, we haven't spent any more money than we already have. And secondhand stores are a great source for cheap books.
And we'll take one more question. And as you continue to put your questions in the chat, we'll be sure to answer them. This question asks, is there a term for books that have the words written and highlighted as they are read out loud?
Oh, that is a great question. That is one of those proprietary things that tends to change depending on who is providing the book. So it depends on the publisher. So there's not a great name for that. Your librarian is likely to be able to help you with that again. I have what advice would you give to a parent whose 3rd grader has missed out on foundational learning during the pandemic in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade? How can a parent support their child to close the gap? And are there resources that you would recommend? So our final section, we're going to talk about habits to improve reading skills, and these are going to be really valuable across the board, no matter the age of your child. So this is going to help. But again, you think about those minutes that you spend reading, and every extra one that you can fit in with your child is going to add up in the long run. So keep working at it, and having a supportive parent is honestly the first step.
So the next section of this webinar discusses habits to help improve reading skills. But first, I got a quick brain teaser question. What surprising benefits do adults and children gain from reading fiction books? So I'll give you about a minute, take a guess. All right, so one response is they get more words in, something in another says it's something in common. They get used to their imagination, okay? Bonding. Someone shared my daughter will read a book and then make up more to go with that story. Okay, creativity, love it. Stretch your imagination. Yeah, so there are a number of benefits of reading fiction. Some studies have shown that reading fiction increases empathy and decision-making. Other studies have shown that regular readers of fiction live, on average, up to 2 years longer than non-readers. So I'll now pass it back over to Elizabeth.
So let's look at some of those habits to improve our reading skills. When you excel at an activity, you want to spend more time doing it. So take a minute and think about an activity that you do well. Maybe you run, maybe you bake the best apple pie, maybe you can fold a fitted sheet. I can't. Maybe you're a genius at finding the best new movies. Whatever that activity is, when people spend time doing activities they do well, they have a good time and they want to do it more often. So obviously, if children can become better readers, they are going to enjoy their reading time more, and they're going to want to spend more time reading. Here are a couple of habits that you can incorporate that'll help improve their reading skills. The first one is to practice vocabulary. Improving vocabulary is an important task for readers young and old. The first step is just to notice when you encounter new vocabulary. Check to see that your child understands the meaning of any new words you come across. Give them child-friendly explanations or definitions using words and situations that your child understands. So my example is if I came across the new word exclaim, you might say, when somebody exclaims, they yell out. What do you think you would exclaim if you saw a unicorn run by right now? Right. Then see if they can use the word in a sentence. Try to bring up those words again later in the day. Use synonyms. Don't just say big, say enormous, gigantic. Make it a game to play with your child to switch out basic words for these fancy words. There are vocabulary words in books, but this is a great exercise for words children encounter in everyday life. Every time you have a discussion, or if you're watching TV or listening to the radio, this is another opportunity to stop and talk about new words and concepts. Over time, purposefully seeking out new words becomes a habit, and this improved vocabulary will make reading easier and more enjoyable. The next habit is to talk about the book before you start reading. Have you ever had the experience of not being able to follow a conversation just because you missed something that was said before you were really paying attention? Some conversations need a little bit of an introduction before you just jump in. Reading can benefit from this kind of introduction as well. This kind of introduction is called activating prior knowledge, and it helps children build on information they already have. Building this knowledge is a step up, and it helps them improve their comprehension. When you're activating prior knowledge, read the pictures on the front cover and look at the summary and their synopsis on the back of the book. Look for hints about actions that might occur later in the story. Question if you've read any other books by this author. Can your child make a connection to any books similar to this one? With a nonfiction book, it's great to ask about the subject of the book. Ask, what else do you know? Several times. Try to see how many facts your child can bring out of their memory. And you can do this with chapter books as well. Before you sit down to read, ask what happened in the book so far. Making connections is our next habit. In order to build knowledge and understanding, everything that a person reads needs to be connected to something else. This is the basis of reading comprehension. When you not only read the words, but you understand what has been read and you can apply it to other situations. Children can make connections between a book and their lives. So you could ask, have you ever been in a situation similar to the main character? What if you were the main character? What would you have done? Have you ever visited a place like in this story? They can make connections between a book and another book. You can ask, how is this book similar or different to another book that we've read? If you're reading nonfiction books on the same subject, compare and contrast the different facts you've learned. Finally, you can make connections between a book and the world around you. Questions in this case might be something like, how's this fictional turtle different from the one that we watched a movie about? And you can always ask, what does this book make you wonder? Now let's talk about making evidence-based predictions. People with strong critical thinking skills are good at looking at the evidence and coming to a conclusion. This is a vital life skill. Pay attention, though, to that key word, evidence. Children need to be encouraged to pay attention to the evidence provided in the book and use that evidence to make their predictions. This can be a hard skill, and it's going to require some assistance from their trusted adults. Looking for evidence in the text is not always a natural skill. So to help, a parent might ask, what has happened in this story so far? Did you notice any clues that'll tell you what's going to happen next? After gathering some clues, the next step is to make an educated guess and check to see if that guess makes sense with the facts. When children make their guesses, it's important to ask, why do you think that? Give children the opportunity to explain their thinking. Then adults can ask questions if they think that the evidence suggests something else. And don't be afraid to share your own predictions based on the evidence. This is an opportunity to model the process of making evidence-based predictions. When your child is better at the process, they'll even begin questioning your evidence. It can become a competition to see who is right. Finally, after you've finished reading, check back and see if that prediction was correct. Review the evidence and see how it contributed to the conclusion. I honestly can't say this enough. Talking with children is the best way to build brain power and improve their understanding with what they've been reading. That's why having discussions and asking questions is such an important habit to build. So I'm not advocating asking questions like, what happened on page 7? The best kind of conversation is natural. Ask about why a character might have acted a certain way. Imagine together how the story might be different if it took place somewhere else. Talk about nonfiction books too. Imagine living through the events described in a history or biography book. Discuss the traits of various animals and decide which one is best. Whatever books you're reading, just talk and think together. Conversations about books are also a great opportunity for children to practice answering questions completely and in full sentences. They can practice using new vocabulary words too. Most importantly, these discussions are a great way to just bond with your children about things you mutually enjoy. The final habit to improve reading skill is to practice reading out loud. Some of us have less than pleasant memories of being asked to stand up in front of a crowd to read. And this can be a source of anxiety and pain for some children, but there's still reason to encourage our children to read out loud. When a child can read out loud in a conversational way, that child is able to combine all the many skills of reading without having to think about them. Kind of automatic. This kind of automatic reading is referred to as being a fluent reader. Fluent readers often have better understandings because they're not focusing on the mechanics of how to read, they can just focus on the content. First, again, it's great to have reading role models. Every time adult reads to a child, they're modeling fluent reading. Children are hearing books and information at a conversational speed. They're hearing changes in tone and emotion as different situations occur in the text. Children are hearing adults take breaths and pause to show punctuation. And whenever they have a break in their fluent reading because they need to sound out a word, you can ask your child to go back to the beginning of that sentence and start it again. Not only are they getting practice sounding out that word again, but they're having the opportunity to think about the meaning, not just the sounds of the word. Children need many, many opportunities to practice. Encourage them to read out loud, first words and books that they're very familiar with, and then new books when they're ready to branch out. Activities like telling jokes from a joke book or singing along with the lyrics written on the screen are great ways to practice fluency as well. And these bite-sized fluency builders are not really as intimidating to striving readers. A child who would like some private practice time could read to a family pet or a favorite stuffed animal if they're looking for a completely judgment-free zone. These are the general habits we shared today to talk about improving a child's reading skill. Practicing the vocabulary, talking about the book before reading, making connections, making evidence-based predictions, having discussions and asking questions, and practicing reading out loud. Which ones are you looking to incorporate into your reading routines next? So we have time for one quick brain break. Reading has a number of benefits. One of those benefits is less stress. So I'd like you to guess how many minutes a person should read a day in order to reduce their stress. Feel free to drop that in the Q&A. I am seeing 30. Ooh, a lot of people say we need 30 minutes, 15, 20. Got a 6 in there. Well, this is surprising. The answer, see, a lot of 30s. The answer is just 6 minutes a day. Reading 6 minutes a day can reduce your stress by about 68%. As according to a 2009 study. Awesome. So I will turn the mic over to Ms. Nasika so she can share about our program, and we'll have time for Q&A after that. So if you would like to drop your questions into the chat, we will have time to get to them before we end today.
Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. Before I share about New Worlds, just wanted to backtrack to a question that we had about reading comprehension. So if you visit our website, newworldsreading.com, we have downloadable resources for parents. In addition, if your child qualifies for the program, every month they can receive resources that address comprehension needs in a fun and engaging way. So I'm really excited to share with you all about our program where Elizabeth and I work. So before our final Q&A session, I'd like to take a few moments to share some information about our work with the New World Reading Initiative. As I mentioned earlier, Elizabeth and I work at the University of Florida Lastinger Center for Learning, which is a part of the College of Education. The Lastinger Center's mission is to improve the quality of teaching, learning, and childcare and create educational innovations for adults and children to put all learners on trajectories for lifelong success. The New World Reading Initiative is a huge part of this effort. The New World Reading Initiative is a program created by the state of Florida that intends to help improve literacy rates in the state of Florida by providing children and families with free literacy resources that they need. The program serves children and families and educators of children who are in elementary school. And as you can see, we've done some amazing work thus far. As of date, we've already shipped 2.5 million books to students. We have about 175,000 students who are enrolled. And again, just to reiterate, this is a program 100% free to those enrolled. Each month, children in the program are mailed a book of their very own, as well as materials as book-specific materials that support literacy growth. Even if your child does not qualify for the program, these literacy materials are available online for anyone to download for free. And just head down to your local library to pick up the books. In order to participate in this program, children must meet the criteria. Currently, the program accepts children who are in grades K through 5, in public or charter schools, and who are not yet reading on grade level. Reading on grade level is based on state assessments. In grades kindergarten through 3rd grade, if your child is behind on quarterly progress monitoring tests, or your child's teacher has assessed your child as being below reading level, your child could qualify. In grades 4 through 5, this will be based on the FAST testing data. If you have any questions about whether or not your child is on grade level, we highly encourage you to discuss this with your child's teacher. They will be the best source of information for on this topic. Once a child has applied for the program, the New World Reading Initiative, their information needs to be verified. Sometimes the verification process can take a while, but not to worry. Whenever a child qualifies for the program, they're in it until they graduate from 5th grade. It is a one-time sign-up process. So a child isn't automatically enrolled in the program when they qualify. This means that if your child is eligible, you will need to go online to newworldreading.com to answer a few questions so that the program may start the process to verify your child's information. Please be sure to match the information your school has on file for your child so that this can be done as easily as possible. Part of the sign-up process is also answering questions about your child's book preferences and language preferences. Each year, you're asked to come back to our website to update your child's reading preferences. The program is currently available in English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Braille. So the New World Reading, we also have a scholarship, which is administered by Step Up for Students, and it offers families access to education savings accounts worth up to $500 each. The scholarship is to pay for tuition and fees related to part-time tutoring, summer and after-school literacy programs, laptops, tablets, and more. So this information can be found on the website listed on your screen. So thank you so much for listening to us talk about this awesome program. If you have any questions about the program, please feel free to contact us using the information on your screen. There is also a lot of information available on the New Worlds Reading website. If you are the parent of a striving reader or you know of another child who might benefit from this program, I hope you'll encourage them to sign up. So now let's move into our question and answer section now. So the time for the final Q&A. So it is time now for our final Q&A session. Please feel free to add your questions into the Q&A feature and we'll get to as many questions as possible. So we do have a comment in the Q&A feature. It says, our elementary school child went from not reading at all in first grade to third grade level now. We are grateful for your program's assistance in making that happen for her. That is awesome news. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So again, feel free to drop any questions. Okay, so how soon can I get books after I apply? So the way the process works is once you enroll your student into the program, your information has to go through the data process. So once we get everything verified, there is about a 6 to 8 week waiting period where you will receive your books around the 6 to 8 week period. Do you have summer reading camps available during the summer? So we do not, but some exciting news, we now have summer books that will be shipped when a student is eligible and enrolled in the program. They can receive an additional 3 books. And as far as summer reading camps, I'm sure the Parent Academy has a list of resources and a list of camps that are available throughout our district.
But again, that Step Up for Students scholarship can be used for summer literacy programs as well.
So enrollment is still open for the 2022-2023 school year. So this school year, if your child is eligible and you apply before June 4th, your student will receive all the books for the school year along with the 3 additional books and will continue to receive books until they graduate from 5th grade. So I see a question about, I'll answer the question about once receiving books and now that's stopped. I'll share some contact information and we can get you to our customer service line. Elizabeth, one question was, do any activities come with the books?
Yes, they do. Every book that goes home to every child comes with an activity guide that has some vocabulary that you could pick out, has some discussions that you could have, and it has some activities. So there's a bunch of information with every book that comes home. Erica says, I speak English and I speak Spanish and my daughter is learning English. We only speak Spanish at home. How can I help her keep reading in English? If your child is still learning to read in English, it is great to keep reading in Spanish as well. Studies show that children who come from bilingual households They speak maybe Spanish at home, they speak English at school. They might have a couple of bobbles when they are first learning English, but the benefits of having a strong foundation in Spanish, the strong foundation in their home language, transfer very quickly. And while they might be a little bit behind in the beginning of learning English, learning to read and speak right English, they catch up very quickly. So by the end of second, third grade, we see most kids, if they have a really strong foundation, they're catching up. So keep reading and keep talking and keep discussing the books. It really does not matter the language. Of course, if she's got homework, encourage her to finish the homework. There are plenty of tutoring resources. Again, if you qualify, those step up resources, the step up scholarship can help pay for those. And your school may provide them for free if you are not comfortable in English. But again, if you are comfortable in Spanish, keep working on it.
And we have time for a couple more questions. Pop them in the chat. So to Erica's question, you can also give your child multiple opportunities to reread text because it will help to build your child's fluency. So these are the reading habits we shared today. Are these all the reading habits that there are? No. This list was meant to be a jumping off point for you and with some general habits. It's okay if you have additional habits or slightly different habits. If you have time for one final note in the QA chat, we'd love it if you would share what habits you're looking forward to incorporating into your child's reading routines. We have a question in the chat. Are the books only in English? No. So the books come in English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Braille. All right. So one habit is to practice vocabulary. Awesome. And we have a participant who says they're ready to make reading fun. Family reading time where we each read our own books together. Right. All great responses, and we're really excited for you all to practice your new habits. Building an at-home library, limiting video games, reading aloud more. Awesome. Audiobooks, audiobooks, audiobooks. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So remember back in the beginning of the presentation when I asked you to share traits and skills that are the reason that your child will succeed? You shared your statements with us, and we want to share our statement with you. Your child will succeed because they have caretakers like you who are here and working to make sure that they have the right tools. We appreciate your time this evening, and we hope to see you again at a future Parent Academy webinar. If you're interested in learning more about the New World Reading Initiative, please feel free to contact us at the email below or through our website, newworldsreading.com. If you have a moment and would like to connect with us and tell us your needs, we have a survey at on the QR code on the screen. Oh, that's a great question. So with the QR code, we do have a survey where we'd like to hear your feedback on today's presentation and any additional comments that you have. So if you scan the code, it'll take you to our feedback survey. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening.
Ms. Hayes, we have a question in the chat about how someone can get a transcript of today's recording.
So everything that you guys have viewed tonight will be posted on our website. And if you go to the Alachua County Public Schools main page and click on equity, you can click on Parent Academy, and then all of our videos from tonight and prior recordings will be listed there. I'm not sure how long it takes the IT team to upload it, so I don't think it will be like there tomorrow. But they will upload it, and that's where you will find it at. Is there anything in particular that you, Nasika, do you all share your PowerPoints, or do you all share, like if they wanted to get that information sent over to them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in that case, you guys will have the opportunity to go back and re-review this recording, and then if you need the information from Nasika and her team, then she can provide that the PowerPoint to you. Thank you for seeing that, because it was all the way down on my screen. All right, I think all questions are cleared out. I thank you so much, ladies, for all that you do for our families. And so I will go ahead and close us out for this evening. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us on tonight's Zoom. We appreciate your participation, and each week you are available to connect with us for more informative presentations and discussions. Once again, I am Tina Folston Hayes, the Parent Academy Specialist for Educational Equity and Outreach for Alachua County Public Schools. I look forward to seeing you next Thursday for another informative webinar. And without further ado, I just want to say thank you again to our hostess. And we look forward to you guys coming back to join us. And you all have a good night.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome.